Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito rejects calls to recuse himself from cases related to the January 6th Capitol attack. Alito sending two letters now to lawmakers who had called for his recusal after flying two separate flags seen as symbols of the so-called Stop the Steal movement. The first one was in Virginia, where an upside-down American flag flew outside his primary residence. This story broke a couple of weeks ago. Then the second flag, as you see here, which is known as the Appeal to the Heaven flag, flew outside his vacation home in New Jersey. Well, Alito blames both incidents on his wife. Senior national correspondent and my co-anchor Terry Moran is here with the latest. Okay, you and I were just talking about this letter. Clearly, this gives us quite an interesting insight to his marriage.
It sure does, and you can see why he might not have wanted to get all this out, but he did, and it's because two Democratic senators asked formally for him, Chief Justice Roberts, to have him recuse himself from all January 6th related cases. So he says, no, because I didn't do anything wrong. He says that first flag, the upside-down flag, he didn't even know it was up until somebody called it to his attention. He says, as soon as I saw it in this letter, he says, as soon as I saw it, I asked my wife to take it down, but for several days, she refused. And the reason was that, as Justice Alito says, and as reporters have verified, she was greatly distressed at the time, due in large part to a very nasty neighborhood dispute in which I had no involvement. And that was happening. And then he goes on to say, my wife is a private citizen. She possesses the same First Amendment rights as every other American. She makes her own decisions, and I've always honored her right to do so. And then the other flag, the Appeal to Heaven flag with the tree in it, he says, my wife is fond of flying flags. I am not. Then he lists all the flags that she flies at that beach house. She put up some which she owns, by the way, patriotic flags, college flags, flags supporting sports teams, state and local flags, flags of nations from which the ancestors of family members came, flags of places we visited, seasonal flags, religious flags. He says, I wasn't aware of any connection between that flag and any movement. He had a vague understanding, he says, that it was dated from Revolutionary War times. And he says just because a flag is adopted by new groups doesn't mean that it loses its own meaning. And then at the end, he says, my wife is an independently minded private citizen. He says again, she makes her own decisions and I honor her right to do so. And then he underlines a reasonable person who is not motivated by political or ideological considerations would conclude that this event doesn't meet the standard for recusal. It doesn't mean I can't be impartial. It wasn't me. That's what he's saying. And he explains it in pretty great detail there.
All right. So here's my question. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Sure. All right. We're talking about the Stop the Steal movement. We're talking about an insurrection. We're talking about people that died. We're talking about a moment in history like we have never seen before. This man is on the highest court of the land. He deals with the biggest decisions of decisions, and he can't say no to his wife?
Oh, well, I mean, there are a lot of famous men, who can't
say no to their wife?
Right, powerful kings and all that stuff. But more importantly, is it the appearance that he can't be impartial? I mean, if you're on the other side of a January 6th case, the side that didn't fly the flag upside down, can you trust that Alito would be impartial? Just the appearance of it might color your sense of the case. And unfortunately, that's one of the things Congress is looking at. Justices at the Supreme Court are the judges of their own cases. They judge themselves. And so he lays out his evidence. This is my wife that did it. Nobody could reasonably conclude that I can't be impartial in this case. I declare myself innocent. That's what this is.
I tell you what, I would give anything to put Alito right here in between us so we could all have a conversation.
I'm sure he'd love that, Karen.
About the marriage, about the law, yes. Okay, stay tuned. We'll work on that.
We will.